Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. I am doing great. So, my name is Leanne, and I will be sharing today with you guys. And I think obviously the question is, what are you sharing on? So, I will be sharing on a topic that is very simple, but I think is also important and it deserves to be shared on, which is on beauty. Um, well, unfortunately, the word on its own is soft. I wish it had a command like such as, discipline or perspective or wisdom. But I will be sharing on beauty. Not that it's, as I said before, trivial or not to be recognized, but it's I think it just has like a soft description or like a soft word to identify it. So now moving on to the details, right? So why a podcast on beauty? Um, so as a woman, beauty is something that is very important. Every woman wants to identify with beauty, no matter what that means to them, right? You can see even little girls from preschool. You see they can group themselves according to how they look. Like their outward appearance can actually determine who their friends are, which is what happens mostly when when we're kids. So however, I started to discover something that I did not realize before, and that is the composition of beauty, like the things that make a person beautiful. This is according to me. So please feel free to listen and glean something, anything that you find that will be beneficial and that you can relate to as I share. And also, I know I said I started to find some things that make up what a beautiful person is like. And I'm not going to be sharing on inside beauty, although that is also something that affects how we look outside. I will be mainly focusing on external beauty. So yeah, that's mostly what I'm going to be sharing on. In a nutshell, my thoughts on beauty and what a beautiful woman looks like and what gets her there. Spoiler, not it's not a spoiler alert actually. Although I'm sharing from a woman's perspective, I believe beauty is unisex. Men have a certain beauty that they have on their own. It's only that it looks different from how women, describe, themselves to be beautiful. Right. So to the next point, what is beauty? What like how do we define beauty? And I think before we jump into that, I thought it would be really good to first identify who defines beauty, because for example, if someone who people we usually there are so many definitions of things out there, but we usually refer or rely on the definition that we think is most trustworthy because of the person who describes it, right? For example, if Einstein describes a certain law in science, and I describe a certain law that is to do with that similar whatever instrument or what he's talking about, most people would go for what he said because of his credibility, right? And for me, when defining beauty, I was able to identify just one person who defines beauty in such a beautiful, respectable, and really, I think, just a beautiful way, and that is God, right? So he first describes beauty from my like what I saw, that his first expression, and also just before I continue, if maybe this someone who's listening to this doesn't believe in God, or just does not believe in God, it's fine. But there are things that I'll be sharing as well. You can keep listening if you would like to. Things that you might find to be beneficial as well. Talking about beauty, I am not forcing the idea of God. I'm just bringing out the elements that He gives concerning beauty. So now, back to who defines beauty, right? God. The first expression or description that He gives of beauty that I saw was like the word, how He first described beauty was good. When He created the sun, the moon, the stars, even us human beings, He kept saying, this is good. This is good. And I think that God there was already expressing the beauty of what He had created. He said, it is good, which I think really is the foundation, excuse me, of all beauty, right? And then later on in Psalm 139, verse 14, He explains it as fearfully and wonderfully made. So I thought again to dig deeper and find what these words, people always say, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, but what exactly does that mean? Sometimes we encourage ourselves, but we don't even know what we're talking about. That's why maybe sometimes we still get beat down by people, excuse me, making us feel like we're less beautiful because we really don't understand what these words mean. So I found that the word wonderful means extremely good, which is actually amazing because it ties into what I actually explained early on, that the first description of beauty that God gave was that it is good. So wonderful means something that is extremely good, something that inspires delight. If you love food and you see a good plate that is just well dished out, well decorated, it inspires a smile, it inspires delight. And also another way of describing wonderful is it inspires admiration. You ever see something so beautiful and you're like, you just keep looking at it like, man, hands down, this is beautiful, right? So to the next word in this, still on Psalm 139 verse 14, fearfully and wonderfully made. I started off with wonderfully, now I'm going to fearfully, right? So when something is fearful, when I'm fearful, it says I'm disturbed by fear. And many times in the Bible, we see the phrase fear God. The beginning of all wisdom is the fear of the Lord. And here again, in the description of beauty, we see an address to fear. And this, of course, is not a scary runaway kind of fear, but it's just a way of saying, give credit where it's due, give respect where it's due. Like, this just hands down, like credit to this, because credit to God for this, because this is just amazing. That's how beauty is supposed to make whoever is looking feel. So yeah, basically that is what I found in the beginning. And so there's a favorite quote on beauty. I don't know who made the statement, but it says this. It's describing a woman, and it says, she wasn't pretty. She was a work of art. And that's supposed to make you feel something, and that was just mind blowing to me. And when you look at a work of art, the sketches are not always precise and concise, but it's still beauty. It's still beautiful, and it makes you feel something, which is that delight that we talked about, that inspiration of admiration that we talked about, right? So above all, everyone who looks at you, everyone who looks at me must agree that, this is beautiful. From just the way that you present yourself, though even you as you look at yourself, even I, as I look at myself, I must be able to say man, this is a creation. This is beautiful. There must be a God somewhere to create this right here, So beauty is not just the physical of how you look. It's also your presence. It's also how you make people feel, because all those, for example, wonderful and fearful, they have feeling fed into them, right? For example, sometimes you can meet someone who's, for the first time, you meet someone who's extreme, who has a perfect nose, perfect eyes, perfect skin, but they might not give out a presence or a feeling of admiration, or a feeling of, that inspires delight. That already is a subtraction of beauty from that person. But I'll be sharing more on those elements in other episodes. So now moving on. I don't think, obviously, we see that a lot of women feel, even men, feel like they don't look the part, do you really think I look good? Even I have been there, like, I don't think that I look good. I don't think so. And this is also part because we know there's always good and bad. And there's always, the devil has always worked so hard to try to diminish our beauty. And, you know, I think, excuse me, we like to look at the devil in a way that, oh, he fights our blessings, he fights our, excuse me, he fights our peace, but he also fights our beauty. Just as God made Adam and Eve, he made them like smoking hot. I know sometimes, Christians were like, but God made them hot. He made them sexy. But the devil does not want that. And that's why you see that there's a continual deterioration of beauty. And it's not bad. It's not unholy to be beautiful, right? And we see that beauty is actually something that God is interested in, because if it wasn't a big deal, would still be as beautiful as Adam and Eve were. But the devil is attacking this. He's attacking this beauty for a certain reason. So this is one of the reasons why I'm sharing on this, because I think it's something that is still important, right? So now that we've defined who defines beauty, that is God, I guess I can move on to the next point. That is why it's important that he defines beauty, that I don't, define my own beauty, or somebody else defines how beautiful I should be, or I define how beautiful somebody else should be, right? So one of those reasons is that people change. I change. You change, we all change. Our perspectives change. Our desires change. 1 minute you're the most beautiful girl or guy in the world to someone, and the next you're no longer as beautiful as you used to be, or somebody better, somebody's now better than you. And this actually reminded me of one economic principle. That is, it's the principle of diminishing marginal utility, right? When you keep consuming something, for example, you drink one glass of water, you're so thirsty, then you drink one glass of water, and then you drink another one again, and then you drink the third one. You won't enjoy the third or the fourth glass of water as much as you enjoyed the first one. So I think that also kind of like applies to us human beings. We get used to things, and sometimes as a result of that, we start taking things for granted, and we start devaluing each other's appearances. The receiver taking this energy may feel sad and truly not so beautiful. So unfortunately, with beauty and how we feel about ourselves, it's not safe. It's not stable to let us define how others